This is Andrew Hall. You're listening to Dead Hand Radio, a podcast about the Cold War, its history, and the effects it had on our culture, technology, and the future of our world. My guest for this episode is Jamie Ray, a fellow member of the Slightly Irregular Podcast Network and the creator and host of Fav Five From Fans, a podcast where he and his guests each make a list and discuss their 5 favorites of anything. Jamie grew up during the 70s and 80s, and as a child of the Cold War, he shares very similar feelings as many others from that era. On this episode of Dead Hand Radio, Jamie and I discuss movies about the Cold War. We talk about The Day After, Threads, By Dawn's Early Light, On the Beach, and Failsafe, as well as several others. They're all incredible World War III movies, as you'll hear in our conversation. And if you haven't seen them, I highly recommend you check them out. We also touch briefly on one of my all-time favorite movies, Dr Strangelove. So if you enjoy movies about the Cold War or history and pop culture from the 40s through the 90s, I hope you find this episode entertaining and educational. First thing I want to talk about is a little bit of background about you, why you started your podcast. Let's start right there, okay?
Okay. Well, I guess I started my podcast after listening to both the Fright Club with George and Hope, and of course our mutual brother, Phantom Dark Dave, with his pop culture podcast. Driving back and forth to work, my job entailed about a little bit over an hour or so drive each way. So I was looking for things to pass by the time, and got into the B Movie podcast, which they're not on Twitter, they're on Facebook, and they talked about a lot of older movies, and it just really felt like having those people in the car with me, and I enjoyed that. I think the best podcasts are the ones that you inevitably find yourself talking to the device in agreement or in argument with. And I just said, I enjoy this so much. I would love to do this. And so at the end of last year, I joined what's called the Acadiana Open Channel, which is our Lafayette, Louisiana area multimedia center that you can go to. You can do podcasts, you can do live on air, you can record pretty much anywhere. A great organization, and they taught me about doing podcasts, and then I just decided, what the heck, got a few of them in the can, and then early in January of this year, I kicked off the first official episode of Fav Five From Fans, and I haven't looked back since.
Awesome. And so your podcast, you basically cover 5 of anything.
Yes. So basically, exactly whatever a fan of something and I that share an interest in, I try to do an episode. So far we've done a lot of movies and TV, because that's simple, that's easy. Everybody likes one thing or another. But I'm also branching out into toys and magazines, comics, books, authors, basically anything that something I have an interest in and I have a friend that has an interest in. And it's structured so that the friend makes a list of at least 5. Honorable mentions are allowed. And I make mine, but we do not discuss what those lists are until we actually sit down in the plastic microphone studios to record the episode. And so there's a good factor, a good wow factor, a good laugh factor. The number one thing about my show that I'm most proud of is that it is a favorites list, which I know there's a lot of top whatevers, a lot of best whatevers. You can argue with someone what the best thing is, because you can look at, I don't know, directing or writing or cinematography. But when it's your favorite, there's no argument. That's yours. You have your own reasons for it being your number one. And I love that because you can have 5 people in a room and all 5 of them have a different favorite, but they might all agree what the best of, say, a movie is. And that's what I go for.
What part of the country are you in?
I live in Lafayette, Louisiana, which is actually, we just had a visit from Marco and from Laura. But we were very lucky that it went more toward the west of us. Went through an area called Lake Charles and Cameron. Some of my friends have had it pretty hard. 2 of them, 3 of them actually, now that I've talked to another one today, everybody's had damage. One is a total loss. But everybody's alive, all the animals, all the kids. So it's still, it's a blessing. I mean, everything, stuff can be replaced. People can't. And luckily we had enough warning that those people got out and got to safety, and now they're coming back, and be a long road to start over, Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. As speaking of things can be replaced, that's absolutely true. What can't be minimized is the trauma that a homeowner endures when losing their home to a disaster like that, or a fire, or an earthquake.
Yes, sir. You are exactly correct.
Can't minimize that trauma. And I know this firsthand because my dad, a couple of years ago, in the fire in Paradise, California, lost his house, everything he owns.
Yeah, it is definitely something that sticks with you as a kid. Our dryer caught on fire. We were all home, and I was, I think, 5 at the time, and we had to all go out on the streets. And a neighbor brought me into her house directly across, and so I watched our house burn. Thankfully, we didn't lose the house. We just lost the garage and all the external stuff. But I'm 50 years old now, and I can still close my eyes and remember what that looked like. And my wife and past sister-in-laws have all joked, because when my brother and I leave a house, we do not leave the dryer running. We always go and turn it off. And it is just something that when you are helpless and powerless and have something like that happen to you, it is definitely formative and sticks with you. And so my heart goes out to all of those people right now who are having to rebuild, some from nothing, literally nothing. Everything's gone. So, there, but the grace of God, I'll tell you.
True, definitely. Well, I'm glad that you were saved, or spared of the any damage. You guys got some rain, I'm sure, right?
Oh, sure, yeah. And we were only without power for less than an hour. No, not bad at all. So I have absolutely no complaints.
Good. Well, glad you made it through that.
Thank you, brother.
Okay, so getting back to your podcast, you're saying that your main focus is that the list that you and your guest discuss is a favorites list, and that makes a lot of sense to me. That makes perfect sense to me, actually. That you guys don't have to debate.
Exactly.
There really is nothing to debate. Like, if I said my favorite ice cream is chocolate, and you try to convince me that it's not, well, that's just crazy.
Exactly.
So I mean, and literally your Fav Five from Fans could cover anything. It doesn't have to be pop culture. Like you say, you could do toys, or memorabilia, comic books, and such and such. You could even do food, like I was just suggesting ice cream, right?
Exactly. We it's funny that you say that, because before the hurricane hit, I actually had a show scheduled to do today that we've had to put off for a couple of weeks, and we will be discussing our and I'll announce it here first. It's the Fav 5 toys you didn't get as a kid.
Good one, man.
Yeah. And actually, my guest is it was his idea, and he came to me and said, "Man, I've been listening to your show and enjoying it, but what about this?" And I was like, great idea. You're the guest. Come up with it.
So who's the guest?
He's a friend of mine, what we call a ROM pal. You may hear in the intro where I talk about one of the things being ROM, the Space Knight. I'm a huge fan of the comic book, which was based on a 1979 toy. The comic lasted so much longer than the toy did. It's about a guy who has been cybernetically and molecularly melded with a suit of armor, and he's one of many space knights who have fought a group of aliens called the Dire Wraiths. And it's a real weird thing because it was back in the late 70s, early 80s when Marvel was doing a bunch of tie-ins with toys. Like they were doing this, G.I. Joe and Transformers. And so Parker Brothers owns ROM the Space Knight, the name and the look. But Marvel created all of the villains and all of the Space Knights. So when it came to a close, ROM did a couple of appearances here and there and then vanished. And there's been a big push in the last 4 to 5 years. Chris Ryall, or formerly with IDW, was able to actually acquire the license to redo ROM, but he couldn't use all of the Space Knights because they were owned by Marvel. It's one of James Gunn's top 3 characters that he would like to actually get into Guardians of the Galaxy as well. That was in there was a Micronaut that was in there too, named Bug. So anyway, the guest is named Lee Seitz, and he was one of the first ROM pals, which is a group on Twitter where we all use that hashtag, and just oddly enough, even after 30 plus years, there's still a lot of ROM stuff going on. And so we'll share little things. We'll share when we have, a custom artwork done, or some guys do custom figures and stuff. So it's going to be cool because neither of us know much about the other's childhood. So I'm going to be interested to know which toys he didn't get and which of those toys he now has.
Great. So is there anything else about your podcast that you would like people to know?
I would like people basically just to know that if you don't like this episode, wait till the next episode, because I've got friends who don't like horror. I've got people who've told me, man, I could only listen to 2 of your episodes out of the 26 that's out there right now. And that's fine, because did you like those 2? Because it's a show for everybody, but not necessarily this week. And so, and also, if you've got an idea, hit me up on Twitter. It's Fav, the number 5 from Fans, or you can hit me up on Facebook. And if you've got an idea for a 5, I would love to hear it.
So with that in mind, we'll change direction a little bit. We'll talk about what my podcast focuses on, and being that you are a child of the 80s, you grew up in the 80s. Were you a little kid through the 80s, or were you born in the 70s?
I was born in 1970.
Oh, okay.
So by 1980, I was 10 years old. I was ripe with childhood. I liked toys. I liked comics. I liked TV, and I liked movies. So all of the stuff in the mid to late 70s and 80s, I was right there, either watching it as soon as it came on, or when it came out, or catching it, in syndication.
Got it. So, as you know, the topic of my podcast is the Cold War, history, culture, technology, the full gamut of whatever happened during that period of time, which the 70s and 80s fell right within that area.
Right. I remember the Berlin Wall coming down. I was there watching it on TV.
That's exactly what I wanted to ask you, is what significant events or milestones in the history of the Cold War stand out in your mind?
Yeah, that one was a big one. One of the other probably most important things that I remember was when Prince's Controversy came out, there was a song on there called Ronnie Talked to Russia. And I think it was very early 80s. So Prince really wasn't on my radar, but a friend of mine was a fan. And I remember listening to that song going, I don't know if are you familiar with that song?
No.
Okay. It is all about Prince basically telling then President Reagan, you need to stop all of this bickering and talk to Russia before it's too late. And that is really one of the first times that I thought about the fact that this wasn't just a movie on TV, or that it wasn't something like that, that, man, there's really something going on here. Like I think it was like 82 or maybe 81. So after that, I think when things would pop up on my radar, it would stick a little bit. And then we started, finding out about the stuff that happened, the Bay of Pigs invasion, and how close we actually got back then. And that's when it started hammering home that we were living in a time when we weren't out of the woods yet. And a lot of these movies remind me of the feeling that I had when I watched them, thinking, oh, wow, could this happen? It wasn't just, it wasn't just Star Wars that out in space, that this was something that could really happen.
Sure. Yeah, we'll talk about the movies because that's a very significant part of, as kids growing up during that era, you had certain movies that really drove home the message of what the Cold War was all about. And because you're the master of lists, you compiled a list of your own, and that's awesome. We'll talk about those movies. I'd like to drill down a little bit further with some of the non-movie related events that may have triggered some thoughts about the Cold War. If you have any recollections of, like, when, so you were 10 in 1980, and that was the first year that Reagan took office.
Mm-hmm.
Now, a lot of people that I've talked to that were around in those days, they were young, remembered hearing about Reagan coming into office and thinking it was going to be nuclear Armageddon when this guy comes into office. I don't want to get into politics, but a lot of people were fearful that Reagan was going to push the button and
yes,
cause nuclear Armageddon. Do you remember anything like that when you were a kid?
Oh yeah, I remember a lot of people feeling that way. I remember seeing it in media. Mad magazines or Cracked magazines would have, everybody was talking about having his finger on the button. It wasn't until I got, I don't know, probably in the mid to late 80s that I really understood how close we could have gotten, I guess to say, that it could have happened. I think maybe when he was first getting into office and I was 10, it didn't really hit to me too much. But I could tell just, from things going on. I mean, we had just gotten, out of, the energy crisis. I remember that being a big deal. I remember people talking about the satellites, did we really have, stuff up there? A lot. We didn't have a lot of politics in my house. I had one brother, and my mom and dad, and so we didn't talk too much about what could have happened or what can happen. We talked a lot more about actual facts. So I don't know if that makes a lot of sense, but we didn't go on. My dad had been through Vietnam. And as that was a major event in his life, he actually didn't want to talk about it a lot. So I guess the generalities that came around us were anything I would have seen on TV, or later on in the second term. I was more in high school and in a group there that we had a lot of of course, I think we called it civics back then, where we had a lot of those discussions. So it wasn't until I was about 14 or 15.
One of the things that popped into my head as we were talking about this, do you remember when MTV first came out?
Oh yeah, I remember watching it.
Okay.
The first day when the Boggles came on. Video killed the radio star, you know?
Then I'm sure you remember the song by Phil Collins, Land of Confusion. That little claymation animation video of Ronald Reagan talking about this. Do you remember the song and the video?
I do. I think I was confusing it just now with Peter. I don't know, the other guy.
Peter Gabriel?
Peter Gabriel song. But
that might have been, you know what? I think you're right. I think it was Peter Gabriel. So I didn't do my homework on that because I'm going off the top of my head. This is ad lib.
Oh.
So that was a Peter Gabriel song. I think you're right. The Land of Confusion. Yeah, it sounds like you're looking it up.
Yeah, I am. I think we're putting two things together because Land of Confusion is a Genesis song.
Yeah, okay.
Yep, you're right. You're right. And it does look like it has like puppets or claymation on it.
Yeah. Yeah. And Phil Collins was the drummer singer for Genesis.
Exactly.
Right. I thought it was Phil Collins, but you know, when you said Peter Gabriel, those two guys were like hand and fist. I think they both sang for Genesis at one point, didn't they?
I believe you are correct. Yeah. I think Peter Gabriel sang for him first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, but that little claymation of Ronald Reagan, for some reason, popped into my head when you were talking about the things that you were saying. And these are the things that, you know, as we're growing up, I'm a few years older than you. I was born in 1966, graduated in 1984, which was Reagan's second term as he was coming into office. I remember that because that was the first year I could vote. And you know, it was I was very proud. I was very happy to be able to go and cast my vote. And but that wasn't the end of the Cold War. I mean, things were still very uncertain between the US and the USSR.
Right.
For another, I don't know, another 7 or 8 years until the Berlin Wall came down, as you said, in 1989. And then a couple of years later when the Soviet Union collapsed. And that was really the end of it. So there is a little bit of trivia that you may or may not be aware of, but there was a song by the Scorpions that came out, I think, in 1989.
Okay.
And it was right around the time that the Berlin Wall was coming down. And it's called Winds of Change.
Yeah, it's got that awesome whistling.
Or Wind of Change. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's got that great whistling section in there. So that song has been attributed to being the anthem of the end of the Cold War. Were you aware of that?
I have heard that they came out the same time. I remember reading that Christmas Day of like, I don't know, 90 or 91 was the last time that they ever flew a Soviet flag over the Kremlin. And I know that some people think some people say that's the end of the Cold War. But a great song. But, you know, the thing is that it's really hard to put what really ended the Cold War, because it's not like switching a light bulb off.
No, definitely not. No, it was a series of events. But no, the song, regarding the song, it was simply given the moniker of the anthem of the end of the Cold War.
Yeah.
It's not responsible for bringing down the Berlin Wall or bringing down the Soviet Union or anything like that. It's just something that people connect with the end of the Cold War.
Yeah, I think it was playing a lot. And did that video have footage of the Berlin Wall coming down?
I don't know. Good question.
I'm trying to remember that one.
Good question. There's actually a podcast dedicated to the idea that song was written by the CIA. Have you heard that?
I have not.
They put together a pretty good case for it, but
that's awesome.
That seems a little far stretched for me. A little far of a stretch for me to believe that one, but still an interesting little tidbit.
Yes.
So is there anything else about the Cold War that you'd like to talk about before we get into the movies?
Oh no, there's so many things I think that attributed to it. For me, Sputnik was always just one of the big major events that I think if you had to like keep score of which side was, I remember that being one that really punched us in the eye, and that was the point where America said, okay, that's it, let's get her done. And but no, there's so many things about it. We literally could do a podcast about it. And look, you are.
Absolutely. Yeah.
No, but I'm good to switch to media.
Okay, well, let's do that. So you, when you and I first talked about doing a collaboration, we thought about 5 or 6 movies that kind of represent milestones or important moments in the Cold War. And I didn't really put together a list for this because I've watched some of those movies multiple times. Mm-hmm. And I just kind of wanted to let you talk about yours, and I'll piggyback off of that, and maybe I'll add in an additional movie or something at the end of that. And we'll just see where that goes. How about that?
Oh, that sounds great. Well, I would probably put these in no particular order, first of all. If I had to pick something, I would say that this first movie I want to talk about is the one that was most impactful for me. Came out in November of 1983 on ABC. It was a movie called The Day After.
Know it very well. Yep.
Yeah. So it had over 100 million viewers and has held the record for most broadcast TV viewers of all time. I think that's unbroken to this day. It was directed by Nicholas Meyer, which this will be the first of a few times that we talk about Star Trek crossovers. Nicholas Meyer, of course, directed Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country, and a personal favorite of mine, Time After Time. This was a movie that took place at a small Midwestern towns. I think it was 2 different towns, both of which had locations that were close to nuclear silos at the time. And so do you remember actually watching this on TV?
No, I don't. But I knew about the movie, so I must have watched it on TV.
Yeah, I know they played it several times again afterwards. But I actually do remember watching this with my mom and dad and my brother. And it no pun intended, it literally blew me away. Some of the ways that they did things in this. So they had characters that are actors, I should say, that I was, somewhat familiar with. Jason Robards, Steve Guttenberg was on there, John Lithgow. B.B. Bish was actually in it too, another Star Trek alum. And Jeff East, who played the young Clark Kent from the first Superman movie. And so the first half of the movie, I think, is just about them. You're figuring out who these people are. Jason Robards is a doctor. John Lithgow is like a professor. And it leads up to a nuclear exchange between the forces of NATO and the Warsaw Pact, which you can't talk more about the Cold War than those 2 baddies right there. And it follows these different stories about these different people. And I won't go into all of the scenes, but I wanted to point out some of the things that really stuck with me. One of which being the ICBM launches. This was like the first time that I think it really struck home to me how many nuclear weapons we actually could have, just by seeing some of the real footage that they used of launches, practice launches, I guess, from different places. And to think that there were over 100 different sites that had multiple warheads, and then finding out that there was a site just not too far from where we lived up in Arkansas. That really stuck with me. Another one would have to be that when Jason Robards was, I think he was trying to make his way back to the hospital after all the ICBMs had launched. There's that shot where they've got all of the people who are leaving the city, and he's the only one driving back in, and it goes off, and he like gets down in his car, and it was just, it kind of shook me as how bright it was, how loud it was, how much it moved. And to think if this was anything like what it would be in real life, I would say it scared me, it was something else. I remember the EMP pulses and talking to my dad afterwards about they kind of explain what happens, but what does it really mean? And he was a very, my dad wasn't necessarily a learned man, but he was probably one of the smartest people I've ever known. And we always had World Book encyclopedias. So I remember after this, talking to him, we went and got the encyclopedia and pulled it out and read about what it actually means and what it could do, and how it wasn't just something that like turned things off and you had to go back and reset them. They were pretty much dead, and you would have to, replace major components to get them to work again. That was kind of scary to think that all the cars you had, everything like that would be just junk at that point. So the explosions were to me one of the scarier things, is when the light would come in behind you and you'd see their skeletons, and then it would just wipe them away. And I think they interspliced footage from the Trinity tests with the houses and the buildings in there. So you got an idea of actually what it really looks like versus what it would look like on a large scale. And of course from there, everything devolves, the farms, the hospitals. I thought what would be one of the most depressing films until I saw another one later on that we'll talk about. And, because it was a walk in the park compared to what the BBC did.
Oh, we'll get to that for sure. But to be sure, that movie was, aside from the wow factor, I that's kind of not the right term to use, but the visual impact of the launching, the simulated explosions, the stories, the personal stories, the individual stories of those people who survived. That's really what drove it home for most people, I think, and made that movie so impactful, I would say.
Yeah, and it was just, even as a kid, to realize, like, there's a scene where I think they're following one of the farmers, and they have a big meeting, and they're like in a blown out building, talking about how they have to scrape all of the dirt off to start over. And he comes home and there's people living on the outside of his farm. And when he gets down to talk to him and say, basically, you can kind of see it breaks his heart, but at the same time, he's got to provide for his family. He's trying to tell him, look, you guys just can't. The other guy walks around, just shoots him in the back, and just goes back to the fire and cuts some more of the meat off or something.
Yeah.
And there were two movies in 1983 that talked about nuclear explosions. The other one, do you remember Special Bulletin?
Nope, but I'm going to put it on my list to watch it.
That is a really amazing movie that takes place almost in real time, where some homegrown guys, scientists who are trying to stop the nuclear proliferation, they make a bomb and have it in a tugboat in Charleston, South Carolina's harbor. And so it's a docudrama where you're seeing the reporters, and they're going back and forth. And I remember both of those movies, even though they're different styles, both hit me the same way in that time. One about, the bad Russians that, were coming to attack them. And one of them was about all Americans just, I even at that point understood that people were calling them terrorists, but they were out for our benefit. They were trying to make, make the world a safer place. And so both of those films, they really hit with me.
Yeah, I'll have to check that out. Special Bulletin.
Yeah.
Going back to The Day After, one scene that stood out for me above all other scenes was, or actually a sequence. It wasn't just one single scene, but it was a sequence leading up to this scene. I don't know if you remember. Oh, you recently watched it, right?
I watched a review of it
Okay.
to remind me,
Okay.
and then I went out and looked for the end scene because I couldn't remember exactly how. I thought I remembered how it ended, but no, please.
So there was a, it was basically like a group of stories that were all surrounded surrounding this event. And these one of the stories that was unfolding was this: there was an old timer who was I don't know if he was World War II or Vietnam vet, but he was a ham radio operator. And every day he would go to, he would get on his radio and he would call out and try to see if he could get a hold of anybody. And there was a little kid, and I'm not sure who that kid was, but it might have been the actor that you mentioned, who was later on he was Superman.
Oh, Jeff East. Yeah, could be right.
Could have been that little kid. But anyway, that little kid would come and hang out with the old timer, and the old timer taught him how to use a ham radio. And over the course of the movie, you would see those two, doing their little hangout, try to get a hold of people. And at the beginning, they would get a hold of people, they would get news, and they would share their news. As time went on, there was less and less people that were responding over the radio.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually the old timer died of, I guess, radiation sickness, because it took him a little while to pass away.
Oh, yeah.
But then the kid showed up, and man, it gets me thinking about it. Kid showed up at his house, sees that the old timer is gone, and the little kid gets on the radio and he continues the exercise.
I think I remember that. Yeah.
That was the scene that I guess broke me from that movie.
For me, I think the worst scene had to be, so I want to say there was a couple that was pregnant, and that was part of going through the different stories where that here they are getting ready to have this baby. And do you remember them having it at the end? And it was
stillborn, right?
Yeah. Oh no, I think it came out and then died.
Okay.
I think stillborn was another one. I could be wrong, but I just remember it being, God, it was like this movie. There was nothing hopeful at it.
Right.
At the end, it was just everything one after the other, and then the very end when Jason Robards finally has made his way home and all those, everything, it's not even a neighborhood. It's just stacks of bricks and piles of rubble.
And you could tell he's deteriorating from the
oh yeah,
hair's falling out. He's got scabs all over his skin.
Yeah. Oh, so depressing.
It is. Yeah, but not the worst. Not the worst movie.
No, no, sir.
So is that the one you want to talk about next?
Yeah, sure. Let's jump to Threads.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
Yes, sir. From 1984. So somebody across the pond saw Day After and said, "Ha, we could do better than that, mate."
And
I'm sorry, that's a bad accent. Yes, they did.
Yeah.
On a budget of £400,000.
Wow.
They made a film that now, and I found out that the one person in this movie who I actually even knew about was the director, a guy named Mick Jackman. He actually did The Bodyguard with Whitney Houston, and he did Volcano later on. Holy, this movie, man, takes place in Sheffield, England, and again, a young couple, Ruth and Jimmy, are getting married because they're pregnant. And so the first part of the movie, it just feels like a drama. The parents meet, and you see stuff on TV. They're talking about what the ongoing stuff between the Soviets and the US. And it's kind of one of those feelings like, oh, well, we're really not involved in that. That's what they're doing. But more and more you start to see people ramping up and buying supplies. And do you remember they had like these commercials that you would watch, that they were watching, and it was talking about, I think there was one that really stood out about how if somebody, after an attack, if somebody dies, how you should wrap them up, and then after 5 days, if it was okay, you need to go outside and bury them. And it was like a commercial for a car lot. I mean, it was, and then it eventually hits, and oh my God, same thing. They had a lot more scenes on the ground, I think, which made it really, really kind of hit home more than just seeing buildings blow up and stuff. The panic and the chaos that were going on in the streets. And that's just the first half of the movie. They go for another hour or so with the nuclear winter that comes on, with all of the things that happen. I mean, it just, oh my God, it's so grueling, and then you think about the fact that like 12 million people would have been killed in that initial exchange, and how much of the UK, I mean, it's an island, so it's not like the US where we had all of this room. This affected so much. And then you've got that monotone BBC narrator. He's just between that, and I think there'd be like computer screens that would come up and tell you different things, like how many people would die and how much fallout was and whatnot. And I don't remember who it is, and I wanted to look it up before I got on here, but there was a guy who looked like he wasn't in the military, but maybe he was like a civilian guard or whatever, but he always had a mask, like a cheesecake mask on his face because of the burns. And that stuck with me. As a matter of fact, when I was looking it up, I saw that and I was like, God, instantly I remembered that guy. And the one scene that stuck out, which you can kind of laugh, but at the same time it is really serious. I remember when they go off and there's like family members trying to get the old lady down into the cellar, and people are hiding up. There was a guy literally on the toilet when it goes off, and when it's your time, you're going. So that movie was the most depressing thing I'd ever seen until I saw The Road. And then The Road just took it to a whole nother level.
Threads to me was, okay, first of all, give you a little backstory on my experience with the movie Threads. I never heard of it until about maybe 2 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, really, believe it or not. The way I heard about it is because I am an active participant in a group on Twitter. But the group is called basically the post-apocalyptic group on Twitter that I belong to. So, and a majority of those people are from England. And like I said, there are a lot of writers, some artists, but they're always talking about this movie Threads, man. And I'm like, what the heck is that? So I finally got a chance to check it out because it wasn't streaming in the US for a long time for whatever reason. Usually IP, intellectual property differences that they don't.
Right.
But that finally got cleared up and it was streaming. So I went and checked it out. And I was like, wow, that is way beyond what I thought it would be.
Yeah.
And it's not just like the day after. It ends after, the current story is maybe goes for about 12 to 18 months, I would guess. And that's where it ends. But the movie Threads, it goes on for, I think, a generation.
Mm-hmm. Because she has the baby, right. And
the main character, the lead actress in the film was pregnant at the beginning, And about 2/3 of the way, she gives birth to her child. And they say at that time that she's going to be have developmental issues.
Right.
And then as she's developing, you see that all the children that were born at that same time have some type of developmental issues. And it's really visible in that there's a scene where they're doing some kind of schooling, and the kids can hardly speak English. Do you remember that part?
I do. Well, I don't remember the school part, but I remember her going to her mama to wake her up at one point, and it was a very disjointed speech. Like I don't even think she called her mom. I think she called her Ruth, because she heard everybody else calling her Ruth, and couldn't understand that she should, but was like, Ruth, up, go work, or something like that, over and over again. And it was like, oh wow. And to think that is what it could be.
Exactly. And that's, that was, carrying it out another generation was really kind of a brilliant move for that production.
Yeah.
Because they do show that it's not just going to impact this current generation, man. It's going to happen. It's going to carry on for generations. And in fact, I think at the end of that movie, they said that eventually the human race could eventually die out because of
it.
Because
looking at the way it was going. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Because we know that it carries out for another generation, and we see what eventually happens, and it could spell the end of the human race.
Exactly.
So what other movies did you have on your list?
Well, another movie, and looking at this list, I kind of realized that several of them took place, on TV. And another one that I guess I want to actually say I enjoyed, because I actually bought it from Warner Archives several years ago and have rewatched it, is World War III, which actually came on January 31st, 1982 on NBC. And it's a movie that takes place like 5 years in the future. And you remember Boomer from Battlestar Galactica? So Boomer and this other guy are in, at the beginning of the movie, a station in Alaska, who are, they're one of like the first ports of contact for anything coming over from the Soviet Union. And there's this big storm moving in, and Boomer catches that there's actually an airplane right in front of the storm. And I remember him pointing it out to his buddy there, and the guy walks over to his desk and is fooling around, and he comes back and he's got a gun and he kills Boomer. And you realize that the guy is a double agent. He's there because the Russians have been under a U.S. grain embargo, and they have finally decided enough is enough, and we are going to come in and take over the pipeline in Alaska, and then you're going to have to turn off the embargo. And the only people to stop them is David Soul, who was
Starsky and Hutch, right?
Starsky and Hutch and Salem's Lot.
Right. Salem's Lot. Good movie.
So he goes to, he's the colonel of a National Guard group, which I don't remember why. I have to pull it out of my head, but Kathy Lee Crosby is in the group. And I don't remember why she was there, but everybody else is a man. And David Keith, is it David Keith or Brian Keith, is the he's the USSR chancellor, premier, whatever. And Rock Hudson is the US president. And so this storm is moving in, and these highly equipped, highly trained Soviet troops are headed toward this big substation. And David Soul and his National Guardsmen are the only ones there to keep them, and basically to keep them from a world war happening. Because if the Russians take this over, the U.S. government is going to counterattack. And have you ever seen this one?
No, I've heard of it, but it's one I'm going to certainly watch after talking about it, because
it's a different feel from these other movies that we're talking about. Because there's, not to ruin it for you, but throughout the movie, it's all about troops fighting, with knowing that if this isn't settled there, that the missiles are next. And there's this great scene where, of course, they're down. They have very little, ammunition. So the Americans are at their wits' end. They take all of these pieces of piping that are like culverts and put them in crisscross areas, and all the troops get into them. And when the Russians attack, they use it to, I think they call it like a saw maneuver. So
I do remember this movie. Yes. I did see that. But because when you talk about they were crisscrossing and they were hiding in these tubes.
Yep.
And yeah, that part I remember. I didn't know it was the movie was World War III. I think I saw that one when it first came out. And I don't really remember ever thinking about that movie after that.
Yeah, and like I said, there's not a lot of nuclear exchanges or anything like that in it, but I really enjoyed it.
Yeah,
yeah.
So I am gonna check that movie out though. Good call.
How good. So we've talked a lot about the Russians versus the Americans, but there's a movie that I've always enjoyed that it takes the Russians and the Americans together to save us. Have you ever seen 1979's Meteor?
No.
Okay. This is a really great movie, in my opinion. It's directed by Ronald Neame, who also directed the Odessa File and the Poseidon Adventure. And it's all about this meteor, Orpheus, that's just like 5 miles wide, and it's coming at us at like 35,000 meters per second, headed straight to Earth, and we only have 6 days to stop it. So, Armageddon and all of those movies, they all have pulled from this one.
Okay. So did you say that Sean Connery was in this movie?
Yes.
Oh,
Sean
okay.
Connery is a U.S. scientist who created the USS nuclear platform in space called Hercules. Henry Fonda is the president, and Carl Malden is kind of like the lead guy, and I think Martin Landau's in it. B.B. Bish is in it again. We gotta love us some B.B. Bish. And they've figured out that this meteor is so large that even if they turned all of their missiles around and shoot them, that it's not enough. So they cross over the Iron Curtain. So the USSR has Peter the Great. So they have to work together and, of course, put all of their differences aside. Martin Landau is the I don't want to say cookie cutter, but he's the typical army guy who doesn't trust the Russians no matter what they do, and almost to the detriment of the whole, mission. And then as it counts down to when they're getting everything in order and before the meteor strikes, there's what they call splinters, which are breaking off and hitting Earth at the different times. Real cool practical effects versus computer animation. Going back, I did watch some scenes of the strikes before we did this. Very cool. But for me, Natalie Wood as the interpreter for the Russians, such a beautiful woman. She and Sean Connery act so well off of each other. And you've got just all these different little splinter strikes, like in Mongolia and Siberia and the Swiss Alps and in Italy. And it literally comes down to the wire, and if the rockets are going to go off, and if all of them are going to go, and if they'll split it up enough so that it doesn't destroy the Earth. I would definitely tell you, if you haven't seen it, to find it. It has some really great acting in it, and enjoy that movie very much. You can actually see that on YouTube.
Little bit more on the sci-fi end of things. It sounds like more of a kind of a War of the Worlds, or it reminds me of that movie with came out in the 90s with Ben Affleck.
Yeah, that's Armageddon.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So you had Armageddon, and then you had another movie with Téa Leoni, and both of them were about asteroids coming to destroy Earth. So this one really, whoever did those two movies must have really been a big fan of Meteor, because that's
Okay.
a lot of what it's like.
It's
you
on
know,
my list, man. I'll check it out.
I just enjoyed it because it was one of the movies that stuck out where you had the same distrust. You had, because both of these satellites were pointed toward the other countries, that at any moment we could go to war and kill ourselves with it. And then these guys figure out a way to take that sickle and not sickle, the scythe that is hanging down on us, and turn it outwards to save us.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, of course, these other movies have probably done a much, more beautiful job of it, but always is a favorite, because as a kid at that time, it was kind of like, not to sound corny, but it was kind of like a bright light that you could say, hey, they don't all, we're not destined to end out in war. We could maybe figure out a way to work this out.
We have to, in the truth of the matter is, it's fun to think about the potential doomsday of the planet for entertainment purposes. God forbid that would ever happen in reality, because the reality of it would be more along the lines, and probably even worse than that movie, The Road.
Yeah.
And nobody wants to end up in that kind of a world.
Yeah, you're right. So two other films that I just want to briefly touch on, and I think you and I may have talked about at least one of them. Those were going to be the ones that affected us much earlier than, say, my actually timeline. That these talked about early times in the Cold War, and that would be Failsafe from 1964 and On the Beach from 59. Both movies are black and white, and that does not detract from the scare factor of either one of them.
Yeah,
Henry Fonda. I'm sorry.
No, all I was going to say is, don't be deceived by these movies being created in, back in the 60s or even the 50s.
No, not at all.
Because
not at all.
They're not heavily relying on special effects, visual effects, or any of that. These are story-driven, character-driven movies that are just very strong, impactful movies.
Oh, yeah, you are so right on it. I mean, Failsafe almost takes place in real time. And all about some SAC bombers that you go to would fly up to a point outside of Russian airspace, and then they'd get to an area that was the fail-safe area, and then they would get a message and say, okay, come back, we're not going to war. And through a series of technical problems, the message does not get through to the pilot, and they've been trained not to to get on task and to stay on task, not to be fooled by anything. And no matter what they're doing, I think they even bring like the pilot's wife in, and she's pleading with him, you've got to, because he can hear them, but he has not gotten that message to come back. So he has to stay on target, and it really gets you up to the very last moment. Is he going to drop a bomb?
Yep.
And if he does, what is it going to do? And so it's definitely a great movie. But if you want to see it from another angle, then if you watch On the Beach, that's a movie that takes place after a nuclear exchange has already happened.
Exactly.
And,
good point.
Yeah. And that the only safe place that they're sure of, the Gregory Peck and Tony Perkins are on the USS, is it Sawfish or Swordfish? I think it's Sawfish.
The name of the sub?
Yeah.
I think it was Swordfish.
It was? Okay. So they end up in Australia, which is pretty much the only place that did not have a nuclear exchange on it. And even so, they've decided that within 5 months, the radioactive cloud will then pass over Australia. So they have to figure out some safe place to go. And I think the only two places they're looking at is up in the Arctic Circle, and I think they're getting a Morse code signal from San Francisco. And you remember that Morse code signal?
Yes, but what I remember, the TV miniseries, the one that had Armand Asante, I saw that one recently.
Oh,
so
I didn't see that.
Okay, I think it's the exact same story, just told, a little more up to date, and they drew it out a little bit longer for dramatic effect.
I knew they made a TV series too called The Last Ship.
Right.
That I think
totally different though.
Totally different, but still about a sub going around the world trying to find a safe place.
It was actually a cruiser, like a.
It was a cruiser.
Yeah,
okay.
A ship.
Okay. See, I never saw it. Yeah.
It was okay. It had mixed reviews, but if you're into it, go check it out. It's about the end of the world, but it's more of a drama. It's not really. But on the beach, okay, so they were getting a signal. They believed it was from somewhere in the Arctic, north of Alaska. So, yeah, they get on their submarine. There's so many things in this movie, man. We could sit here and talk. But the plot is they go up there to try to find out if there's anybody surviving, and if the radiation had moved away, cleared up faster than they expected it to.
Yeah.
Devastatingly, they find out that it's not the case. The whole world is still irradiated. There are no survivors whatsoever. There's no life at all.
No safe place.
Yeah. And this movie actually could have been a depressing movie, but they didn't end on a depressing note.
How do you mean?
Well, because there's like what I walked away from it with is realizing the world could end tomorrow, and what we need to do is live for the moment, appreciate what we have, and stop worrying about all the we have to think about and we have to work towards building a future, securing the future, and making it safe, and continuing on for our children, grandchildren, and future generations. However, our internal motivation has to be enjoy the moment, appreciate the moment, because you don't know what's going to happen in the next 5 minutes, let alone tomorrow.
Yes. Okay, I'm with you.
And the end of the movie kind of landed on that note for me, was that, they're there, they know they're going to die, but at the same time, they've done all they can do. No regrets. Yeah. Unfortunately, this is the last moments of their life. So just enjoy it, and that's what
I'm with you. Yeah. I'm with you. Cause like that car race they have at the end.
Yeah. Yeah.
Talk about, they gave everything to that race.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'm with you.
So yeah, on that point, it did leave a measure of hope that even if the world was to end, civilization is going to crumble. People are going to revert to their basic instinct, rob, pillage, destroy. But there's also going to be people that just know these are the final moments, man. I'm going to do what's important to me. I'm going to spend time with those that I care about. I'm going to do something that I've always wanted to do, but always been afraid to do. Mm-hmm. So the message is, don't wait until it's too late to do that thing in your life that you always wanted to do.
Right.
So, and great movie. All of those movies that you suggested were excellent movies.
Well, thank you. Those movies all speak to me about what the Cold War was, or, what it could have been. Thank God that we never went down that path, that no matter how bad things got, we never made that into a reality. because some of these are so bleak.
Hopefully, the leaders of this, the world that we currently live in will remain prudent enough to keep it that way.
Yeah. Yeah. From your lips, man, from your lips.
Yeah. You never know. You
Nope.
never know. The world is a very precarious place. There are factions within the world that want to tear down civilization, that they would be completely satisfied if the world would burn.
Yeah. Just that's all they want to do is sit back and watch the world burn. I'm with you. And now, not to get off on a tangent here, but now there's not just one big baddie. Now there's so many baddies that we have to
Agreed.
worry about.
Yep.
With nuclear. I don't worry about that too much, because it's like this the with the on the beach method is I'm trying to live our life every day and enjoy our life every day.
Focus on the moment. Focus on your, what can you affect in this world, and put forth a meaningful effort to make that or to affect that change within your life, and the people in your life.
Right on.
But that's the message that I think that most of these movies have, even though they're trying to make a point that nuclear war is, by all means, it's the last. It should be the last resort, and it should never even be considered. But the fact is,
because it literally would be the last world war.
Yeah,
there wouldn't be a 4.
Right. Well, Einstein made it quite clear that I don't know how the Third World War would be fought, but I do know the Fourth World War would be fought with sticks and stones.
Exactly.
Because we'll destroy civilization as we know it.
Mm-hmm.
If that's the case, man. And there were plenty of times during that Cold War era, as we talked about, there were plenty of times that we came pretty close to the brink.
And I think there are times we don't even know about that we got too close to.
Well, there are certainly times that are not common knowledge that most people don't know about. Well, for one, the Cuban Missile Crisis, that's pretty well known, but there's several other incidents that were just as precarious and potentially even more dangerous that we avoided just by the hair on our chins.
Yep. You're right.
But, all of that makes for great movies, makes for great drama. Just keep it in the realm of fiction, please.
Please.
Was there other, you say you had mentioned that there was some books or some other media that you want to talk about?
There was actually one comic book.
Oh, okay.
That
comic book.
I really, it's a very obscure comic that came out from Epic, which was a Marvel offshoot at the time. In 1985, it was called The One. And it was a really weird, it was a very adult. I mean, my 15-year-old self was probably right at the bottom of who should have been reading this. But a guy named Rick Veitch drew it, and it's this strange story about World War III nuclear exchange being brought on by this billionaire who does it basically, he thinks, to make money. But unbeknownst to him, the Russians have an uber hero that they have created based on some of the Nazi experiments of World War II. And then the Americans have a man and a woman, a brother and sister, who are their heroes. And when the exchange actually goes off, instead of destroying the world, it kind of does a Stephen King's The Stand, where it turns a bunch of people into kind of ghouls, and the rest of the people all go into a collective coma. And I can't even sit here. I actually went to look for a good description of it, and that's probably as close to understanding it as you could get without reading all 6 issues. But I remember thinking it was the wildest World War II ending that I had seen all during. And of course, this, like I said, this was 85, so this was right in the middle of it. The end, even though it was only a few years off, people really weren't even considering. But if you ever have a chance, I think it's been reprinted. You can get it all in one collection, and it has all of these great covers. Each cover, like one of them looks like a box of Tide, one of them looks like a dollar bill, one of them looks like a Coke can. And Rick has this amazing artwork style that's his own. But that was probably the number one thing. I remember reading things like, I remember reading On the Beach and Fail Safe and a lot of different, PA books that took place after World War III. But that comic is the one thing that stood out the most for me.
Cool. Yeah, I'll check it out. That sounds like an interesting, sounds almost like a zombie story.
Kind of. It's got this one scene I remember in it where all of the baddies kind of like form this moving mountain of people, and the one is actually like the collective superhero that doesn't speak, and it's really out there. So forgive me if you don't like it, but I think it's definitely worth a try.
Okay. Yeah, I'll look it up. It should be on Comixology or something like that.
Yeah, it's like I said, I think they just re-released it in like a trade for sure. But okay. Yeah, check it out. But how about you? What's a media that, like, what's a book or something that encapsulates the Cold War for you?
Oh, well, for me, I say this kind of, I'm not quite sure if I can say this definitively because my mind changes on what's my favorite. But for a while now, I always revert back to Dr Strangelove.
Oh yeah.
To me, that's the ultimate World War III movie. And the world does end, and it basically gets to a point where it's beyond human control.
Right.
And that's kind of, I mean, if you think about it, artificial intelligence is an up and coming superpower.
Oh yeah.
And that's what they talk about in that movie. I'm not sure what year that came out. I think it was 64, 65. It was around the same time Failsafe came out. In fact,
yeah, I think you're right.
The two movies were competing at the box office, and because Dr. Strangelove was such a big hit, Failsafe kind of failed at the box office, even though Failsafe was just as good of a movie. But Dr. Strangelove just had so much star power, and Stanley Kubrick behind
Peter Sellers.
Peter Sellers, George C. Scott.
He was on fire,
Great acting.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely great acting in that film. So yeah, that movie, and I saw it as a young kid, and I've went back and rewatched it several times, and I could sit and watch that movie any day of the week.
Oh wow!
And it comes on the Turner Classic Movies channel.
Okay.
Comes on that, I think, about once or twice a year, and every time I see it on that TV channel, I watch it. So that's why I say it's probably my all-time favorite World War III movie or Cold War movie.
Got you.
But yeah, there's so many things I could talk about in that movie.
Whole podcast about that one.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'm with you. I enjoy that movie, but it's not it's not even on, like, say, my top 10. I don't know why. I think when it devolves into a pie throwing contest, it just lost me. But I understand there's certain movies that you don't like or don't get, but you understand why other people like them, and that's one of them. I understand why people will like it. It's just not my ice cream. It's just not my Rocky Road.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and hey, man, no hard feelings in that, because it is a weird movie. It's way off the cuff. Not a lot of people even understand what the movie's about because it's so out there.
True.
But if you haven't seen it in a while, try rewatching it and keep your eye on some of the conspiracy theories that are running rampant now.
Oh, the conspiracists love to do Stanley Kubrick movies. I don't know what they think he must have come from outer space or something.
This one talks about fluoride in the water. And it's just so bizarre. They throw in a multitude of conspiracy theories in this movie. And it's just a wild movie, man. It's a wild ride.
Well, I will give it a rewatch just for you. We'll do a follow-up.
Well, if nothing else, it's worth watching Dr. Strangelove at the end of the movie stand up and salute like, I can walk.
And I'll never forget that bomb drop,
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It was Slim Pickens, man.
Yeah,
that was probably like the most... I think they even did a scene in one of the Simpsons episodes.
Oh, I wouldn't doubt it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't doubt it.
Yeah. Outside of that, I mean, the movies that we talked about all stood out for me. A couple of other just like honorable mentions I would throw out there. Rocky III, where he goes,
I will break you.
No, no, that's the wrong one.
Yeah,
I meant Rambo 3.
Oh, okay.
Rambo 3. When he goes,
I was like, man, go with it.
Well, you're right.
That's what you love.
When Rocky and Drago go toe to toe, Russians and the Americans, or Soviets and the Americans toe to toe in the ring. But no, the one that I really wanted to mention was Rambo 3, when he goes into Afghanistan,
right,
fights against the Russians. That one was one of my favorite Rambo movies. And then Red Dawn. Red Dawn. Yeah, even though it it wasn't, it was more of the Cubans coming and invading the US. They were supported by the Russians or the Soviets. Right. And just a great patriotic feeling movie. And you're going, at the end of it, you're going, God bless America, I'm proud to be American. Booth. Yeah, right. That's right.
Powers Booth from what's the Twilight?
By Dawn's Early Light.
By Dawn's Early Light. Right. Yeah.
Another good honorable mention right there, By Dawn's Early Light.
That's true. Man, that had some stars in it.
Definitely. James Earl Jones, who's also in Dr. Strangelove. Yeah. He was also in Dr. Strangelove as a young actor. Man, he was young in that movie, Dr. Strangelove.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's tons of movies that are worthy of an hour or hour and a half, 2 hours of your time to go check out, and if you're really interested in this topic.
Yes, sir.
So with that, is there anything else that you'd like to talk about that maybe we didn't cover? Because we're kind of, getting to a point where I'd like to wind it down, so it's not too long.
No, I mean, we could talk about Invasion USA, which is better than Red Dawn, but we're not going to go there.
Is that a movie? I thought that was a video game.
No, with Chuck Norris.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I know what you're talking about. You're right.
Yeah, and it's Soviet backed Cubans come to America, but
didn't they come through? I thought they came through Alaska.
No, this one they come through. They come through Florida, through Miami.
Oh, okay.
And that's the one with Richard Lynch, and the one where Chuck Norris has the two Uzis hanging from under his armpits.
Right. I was such a huge Chuck Norris fan back in the day, but all I watched those movies for back then was The Karate. All I wanted to see was the martial arts,
Yeah. That's a fun movie though. But no, I think I'm good to wrap it up from here.
Okay. Well, so for anybody that wants to get in touch with you or find out what you're working on, I always give my guests an opportunity to plug your projects, let people know how to get in contact with you. So go.
So Twitter is always a great place. It's Fav, the number 5 from Fans. You can find us there. It's got all of our episodes you can download. You can also go to Spotify, Apple iTunes, Stitcher,
all the podcast platforms.
Yeah, all those places. We've got a site on Facebook. We've got a website, Fav Five From Fans. It's very simplistic, but you can email me. I'm hulkboy@Fav5FromFans. If you got an idea for a show or you want to complain about a list, you can shoot it to me there. And like I said, we'll have an announcement probably within the next week or so that'll be out there. So check back our feeds. It'll be something new. Hopefully exciting.
And you're also a fellow member of the SIP network.
Yes, I am. My Slightly Irregular Podcast Brothers, or sipnet.us.
There you go. Where you can find all the best podcasts.
All of them. More and more every week.
Right. Yeah, covering many different topics from movies and entertainment to history and education.
Yeah, I love how varied we are, because if you can't find something on the SIP network, you need to do something.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a lot of cool stuff.
There's plenty of cool
from
stuff.
Angry Dads to Wasteland to pop culture. Now we have a 24/7 Christmas podcast. So it's something on there for everybody.
Definitely. Yeah, and a lot of great dudes, man. Everyone in that group is just heart of gold.
You're right. You are so right.
Everybody's willing to help each other, support each other. And I appreciate those guys.
There's some great stuff for sure.
Yeah. All right, my friend. Well, if there is nothing else, then we can call it.
This has been a lot of fun. I appreciate you having me on the show.
No, I appreciate you coming on, Jamie. And hopefully we could do it again. I mean, there's plenty of things. Like I said, the Cold War era encompasses so many things.
Yes, you're right.
We could talk about it for years.
Sounds like a plan.
All right, Jamie. Well, you have a good one.
Take care.
Take care.
You too now.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Dead Hand Radio is a podcast about the Cold War, its history, and the effects it had on our culture, technology, and the future of our world. My goal is to examine these and other topics, to learn, to educate, to entertain, and exchange ideas with those interested. So join me, and together we'll explore a fascinating period of history and examine some incredible advancements in weapons, technology, science, art, and culture, and discuss how all of it relates to the future of our world. If you or someone you know would like to be a guest on this program, drop me an email or visit deadhandradio.com. You can also find me on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. I'm Andrew Hall, and this is Dead Hand Radio. Thanks for listening.